Okay, so my name is Alexandra and my advisor is Professor Sophie Godley, and the name of my Keystone project is the analysis of BU premedical students and their mental health. So why did I choose this topic? I decided on this topic because of the personal connection that I feel towards it. I'm a pre-med student myself, so I've taken each and every prerequisite for medical school during my time here at BU, so I can personally understand the stress that comes with choosing to follow this specific career path. The culture in pre-med students is often volatile and very stressful, and obviously this is not the case all the time. However, it seems to be a pretty common discussion among pre-med students. This propelled me to research the mental health of pre-medical students at other universities. So upon researching this topic, I found some pretty concerning statistics. A study conducted at UC San Diego concluded that pre-med students were more likely to exhibit more severe depression than non-pre-medical students. I wanted to mimic this type of study in my own way at BU. So I started this process by developing a type of survey that I thought would be most beneficial to analyze this particular topic. I wanted to focus on analyzing students' potential adverse mental health symptoms. In addition, I wanted to explore students' opinions regarding the mental health resources that BU already offers to them. So in order to best do this, I decided on using the 21-question Depression, Anxiety, and Stress Scale, or DAS-21 for short. It was short enough to keep students' attention while carefully analyzing their mental health symptoms. In addition, I added some demographic and history questions to find out some more basic information about the participants. And the survey was originally aimed towards sophomore pre-med students. However, to increase my responses, I decided to open the survey to all grades at BU. So for distribution of my survey, I contacted multiple clubs and organizations at BU. Many clubs and organizations were willing to distribute my survey to their members. And in addition, I utilized popular social media groups, such as on Facebook, to gather more responses. Once I had gathered all of my data, I scored the scale utilizing the grading chart that was developed specifically for this questionnaire. Then I created figures to display my data. I also decided to report my findings and recommendations in a policy briefing paper, which is the deliverable of my Keystone project. So the purpose of this research is to examine and analyze the mental health symptoms of BU pre-med students and their opinions of the resources that they can access. So my hypothesis is based on that literature that I reviewed previously. So the methodology of the study is inspired by these aforementioned studies that have been conducted at other universities. So I hypothesize that BU pre-medical students will follow and fit into this trend. So I have some figures here that describe important aspects of the DAS-21 questionnaire. In figure 1, you can see the response types for each question. Students will read each question in the survey and answer with one of those designated responses. They are, did not apply to me at all, applied to me to some degree, applied to me to a considerable degree, or applied to me very much or most of the time. In figure 2, I have provided a small sample of 3 of the DAS questions. For question 1, it is assessing the stress of the student. In question 2, the anxiety of the student is being assessed. And in question 3, the depression scale is being utilized. This trend continues for each of the 21 statements, alternating between these 3 categories. So based on the culmination of their responses, I will use the grading scale, which is provided in figure 3. And as a disclaimer, although these scales are analyzing for specific mental health disorders, such as depression and anxiety, I'm only using this data to see the trends of the mental health symptoms of pre-med students, not to insinuate that because of this scale, they must have or be diagnosed with a mental disorder, because that's simply not the case. So the DAS scale has been used in many academic settings to assess general adolescent mental health before. So my advisor and I decided on obtaining approximately 50 responses to the survey. With this sample size, I could easily perform analysis of the data in the required time frame. I was able to collect approximately 60% of that goal. In figure 4, I've created a bar chart that portrays the percentages of responses to the question, do you feel that these resources adequately support students that potentially struggle with their mental health, including yourself? As you can see from the chart, the most popular response thus far is partially. Students in this category believe that more resources should be made available to BU pre-med students. I find this trend interesting and supportive of the notion that students want increased access to mental health resources. In figure 5, I have created a bar chart that portrays the percentage of responses to the question, what, if any, types of stress did you experience, and to check all that apply to them. So as you can see from the graph, all 3 types of stress have approximately the same percentage of responses. In the survey, the definitions of positive, toxic, and tolerable stress are provided to the participants. They are asked to choose all types of stress that apply to them when reflecting specifically on their pre-med classes and experience. Even though students have experienced the less sinister types of stress, such as positive and tolerable stress, an almost equal amount of responses was obtained for toxic stress. So in addition to figure 5, my advisor and I decided that it could be beneficial to use another method of measuring stress as well as the DAS. She steered me towards a great resource called Harvard Developing Child, and she had personally used this resource in her own research, and I think it accurately describes each type of stress. So there are different types of stress you can experience in your life, of course. These stress types are shown above in the table. Some types of stress can be helpful for your body, like positive stress. It's usually brief and can help you respond to potential threats in your environment. In contrast, toxic stress is prolonged, severe stress that can be caused by many aspects of your life. It can be harmful to both your body and your mind. I asked participants to reflect on their experience, specifically with pre-med classes, and how they relate to their stress levels in these 3 categories. So students were then given common life factors that can cause toxic stress. They were asked to check all that apply to them. Pre-medical courses is the most popular response, with 81.25% of students responding with this factor. In second place, there's self-esteem. So I think that this supported my hypothesis by implying that pre-medical courses can be a common cause of toxic stress among pre-med students. Although it may not be the only factor contributing to toxic levels of stress, it definitely has been a substantial concern for students. So here are some more figures portraying my data. In figure 7, there is a pie chart that presents the percentage of students' responses to, throughout college, have you had any concerns about your mental health? 84% of the respondents answered yes to this question. So this is again supportive of my hypothesis and suggesting that pre-med students are generally concerned about the progression of their mental health throughout college. In figure 8, there's a bar chart that presents the percentages of students' responses to, before your time at BU, were you diagnosed with any prior mental health conditions? As you can see, the majority of students answered no to this question. This question was included to try and control for diagnosis of pre-existing mental illness. Because of a substantive amount of my data included those with pre-existing mental illness, it might have skewed my survey responses. However, the amount of survey participants with pre-existing mental illness was very, very small. So this is the graph that portrays the percentage of survey participants for each scoring category in the DAS-21 stress section. So the 2 highest categories of responses were a normal level of stress and a moderate level of stress. So it's definitely promising that most students are experiencing a normal level of stress. However, there's still a pretty significant percentage of students experiencing some abnormal level of stress. Connecting back to the stress graphs from before regarding toxic stress, positive stress, and tolerable stress, students are feeling these toxic levels of stress due to many factors in their lives, but pre-medical students was one of the higher percentages of factors that students feel contribute to their toxic levels of stress. This is the graph that portrays the percentage of survey participants for each scoring category in the DAS-21 anxiety section. So the 2 highest categories of responses were a normal level of anxiety and extremely severe anxiety. There is still a pretty high percentage of students who are exhibiting normal levels of anxiety. However, there's almost an equal percentage designated for students that are experiencing anxiety symptoms consistent with extremely severe anxiety. And lastly, this is the graph that portrays the percentage of survey participants for each scoring category in the DAS-21 depression section. So the 2 highest category of responses were moderate depression and extremely severe depression. This is a worrying number of students suffering from these adverse mental health symptoms that reflect these extremely abnormal levels of depression. Obviously, there should be more steps taken in order to help address these issues in this at-risk population of students. So in conclusion, this data and topic really excite me. I look forward to learning more about the mental health of pre-medical students. So in a discussion with my advisor, we called my Keystone project a pilot. I wanted to open the door to exploring this topic. I really wanted to explore the mental health of BU pre-medical students and field their opinions about the resources that BU already has to offer them. With the time limits presented by the Keystone project, I was not able to gather a sample as large as I had originally planned. But from the data that I already collected, it is obvious that this population of students is struggling with their mental health, whether it be stress levels, anxiety, or depression symptoms. So in order to best address this, pre-med students mental health should be further explored to reveal even more information about their mental health. A larger study done over multiple years or maybe throughout their time at college would be great next steps. In addition, replication of my study would increase the accuracy of the conclusions that I draw from my data. So now that I've presented my data, I would like to talk about some recommendations. In the future, to stay more on top of pre-med mental health, I would suggest sending a check-in survey at the end of each semester. It might look similar to this survey as long as it addresses student mental health. In the survey, I think that it would be important to remind students of all the resources available to them, whether they are sponsored or not. These could be community groups, mindfulness events, or even how to sign up for a behavioral health appointment. In this way, I think that we can make students feel more heard in their mental health concerns, while also reminding them that they do have options to already address these issues. And thank you for listening.